has a long way to go to restructure its more than 400 billion cedis of debt. Well, if you're wondering why, that's the assessment coming through from ratings agency Fitch. And according to the UK-based firm, there could be a second round of domestic debt exchange. Yes, it's likely to happen because Ghana is seeking, obviously, to restructure and to get some debt relief of about $10.5 billion from its external creditors for the next 4 years. So speaking on key credit scores of African sovereigns and banks, we have the senior director in charge of emerging markets economies at Fitch, Toby Als, indicating that talks on the external debt restructuring have kept really long.
Well, the official creditors committee has not met, and so that's quite a big delay. It's not really obvious why there should be such a delay, given that it's just a sort of technical thing. They just have to meet. But, I guess news from the IMF, the noises from the IMF have been quite positive, and Ghana's 2023 budget sort of put forward some fiscal consolidation measures. So the IMF seem to be pushing pretty hard. But still, we haven't had the official creditor committee yet, so there's still quite a long way to go. Maybe the historic track record on the common framework of moving very slowly, maybe that's not a great guide. Maybe Ghana could be a bit different, but there's still quite a lot of work to do, and especially, as I mentioned, given that there might be more happening on the domestic debt front as well.
Sad reality in which we find ourselves today. What's the likely impact and what's accounting for this, first of all? Let's get to it. We'll do the analysis shortly. Isaac Ofieje is a data analyst here at Joy News, watching all of the figures for us. Isaac, I'm seeing some 85% participation rate. That was our last debt restructuring in terms of the domestic market. The fear is that we may have to carry out a second one. Why?
Well, I'm not too surprised, because if you look at this 85% participation rate, it was just because we reduced the initial target, which was around 137 billion Ghana cedis that we wanted to restructure. It's on your screens right now. This was the initial target when we launched the domestic debt exchange program. The whole idea was to restructure 137 billion, Ghana cedis. Now, upon several revisions, we ended up with this target, 97.7 billion Ghana cedis, and we ended up restructuring close to 90 billion of it, which gave you that 85% participation rate. But there's a loose clause in the whole domestic exchange memorandum, and you shouldn't be surprised if government comes back to conduct a future, exchange program. It says that, in the first exchange that we've done, this is the current exchange. But should there be any, offer to exchange other debts probably in the future, which probably could be anytime soon, probably treasury bills is not included in this exchange, but they may be included in the future. So
that's the danger zone.
It's in the memorandum, and if you read the memorandum, you see some of this clause in there. What government did in bringing down the target from 137 to 97 billion, it gave government a huge deficit, close to 40 billion. So you ask yourself, the initial target was 137, government ended up only doing about 90 billion. That's huge deficit of 40 billion Ghana cedis. Who is actually, holding all of this, debt? But individuals and groups have been asked to come back to the negotiation table. The first group in this whole domestic debt exchange program to start, a campaign against it was Labour. They said completely they didn't want to participate. Don't touch our pension funds. They were given a complete exemption. It was outright, but right now they are being asked to come back to the negotiation table for fresh talks. And they've rejected this. Government is hoping to restructure about $2.7 billion of debt that they owe to Labour. We have also individual bondholders in there, then pension, individual bondholders also agitating that they don't want to participate in this whole debt exchange program. Government should just go ahead and pay their principals.
And Isaac, I want us to talk about the IPPs, the independent power producers, because that featured when, of course, we had the World Bank country rep speak to, of course, the business team, indicating that that's an area where government needs to work on the take or pay and its impact on our economy. So could that be the alternative to sparing at least individual savings and the savings of many corporate organizations?
Well, it could be, but you know, if you are doing restructuring of IPPs, it's important because the IPP debts we are talking about is held in dollars, close to $1.53 billion that we're talking about here. And if you want to do an external debt restructuring, of which you aim to restructure about 11 billion US dollars, you can't go ahead and touch funds of external people without going ahead to touch that of those who are in the domestic market. Remember, you know, external persons who came to invest in our economy, about 1.6 billion US dollars, were included in the domestic debt exchange program and were given a haircut. And so this is the reason why the IPP is important, because at the moment, if you look at government expenditure for this year, interest payment alone is around $5 billion. And if you look at the IPP debts, we are restructuring because we don't have that fiscal space to do it currently. So if you want to go ahead and term your external debt restructuring as successful, then you need to start from your own
here's
backyard.
the thing. At the time, this whole creditor committee issue came up, we still had a fund program, by the way, the IMF approving that it will go ahead. All we had was an assurance.
Exactly.
What's likely to happen to the external debt restructuring, and how is that crucial to the domestic conversation?
Well, there's a template for us to follow. Remember that you needed just an assurance for you to secure an IMF deal. Now, after the assurance, you get your first tranche. Some of the monies will start coming in. But the subsequent disbursement will be hinged on, or will be conditioned on you doing actual restructuring. So you need to meet the respective creditors individually and present an offer to them. You need to meet China alone. You need to meet the Eurobond creditors. You need to meet so many other, bilateral creditors. And you're hoping to do this to cut down about 11 billion US dollars. And so if you are tackling this huge amount of money, you can't, still fall on the assurance that you gained to give you that your first tranche or your first disbursement in the subsequent ones. If you do not do the actual restructuring, you're going to face consequences, because it simply does not give the IMF the confidence that if they continue to pour money in your economy, what are you really going to use this money for? Are you going to use them to pay interest, or you're going to use them to do what you're supposed to use it in the program? And so that is the reason why going forward, it will be important to do actual restructuring, to have actual agreements with our creditors. As it stands now, we just have an
Isaac,
assurance.
let's, of course, wrap up by connecting this to what's happening domestically already. Individual bondholders, by extension, the pensioner bondholders, do not seem to be happy with the way they approach with which government is going about payments on maturities and all of that. And many are wondering what the next impact may be. Will this be significant if government decides to be more stern on individuals such as the pensioner bondholders and those who are exempt, by the way?
Well, as it stands now, government would have to consider, weigh and see the opportunity cost, because the more you wait, the more these credit ratings agencies like Fitch will come at you, giving you downgrades. Because mind you, you gave individual bondholders an assurance that this is a voluntary participation. And so if you decide not to participate, you are assured that your monies were going to be paid to you, principal, interest. And so if you go ahead this way and keep postponing and keep, failing to meet your debt obligation or service, and then it's giving ratings agencies like Fitch and Moody's also the impetus to go ahead to give you downgrades. Remember, last year we suffered about 11 respective downgrades, and we don't want to go that same line.
It's certainly a place we don't want to get
Absolutely.
to, knowing that the president says he is, of course, hopeful that we'll be able to go back to the international markets for more. Isaac Ofieje joining us with the latest on that in terms of the figures and what the implications are for you. Let's get to the actuals and those who are feeling the hit of it. Fitch has made its predictions. Dr. Edouanani Enchi is the former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. He's also the lead convener for the pensioner bondholders. So he's joining us now, having heard and read about this latest news that we're hearing of. Doc, how are you feeling about this? First of all, knowing that there's a likely impact on what's happening domestically.
Yes, that's why we have always been complaining that we need to build back confidence. So whatever the government is doing should be targeted at ensuring that public confidence will return to the market. And so if you keep on making your bonds, I mean these old bonds, look so unattractive. In fact, it's continuously be in default. It's in default because once you default, payment of interest, you are in default. If it's principal, we have even defaulted in the payment of interest and also principal. So you don't make yourself attractive. And so when you hear that government want to go outside and tap the outside market, you wonder, how can you do that when you haven't been able to build your local, the confidence even in your local market, domestic, is eroded. So I think if government want to do something, it must make sure that the local bonds market confidence is restored in not even the bonds market, but I have some other issues that I'm dealing with in this market. The total capital, the financial market, we should bring back confidence in the financial.
We're still running an IMF program, and you're mindful of that. The shortfall in the targets that we even set for ourselves, a shortfall of about 40 plus billion. We need to meet that target. What's the alternative?
Well, for me, government said the 85 was successful. We all were not sure 85 of what figure. Because by the time government said we wanted the 85, we knew there were a higher figure in terms of the debt to be restructured. But when the results came out, we were told some debt has been converted into treasury bills. And so the debt level that was used, in which case, in that case, giving us 85% was lower than the original. But this is what the Ministry of Finance said was to be successful once we have gotten 85. So for me, as I sit here, I say, well, if you've gotten your 85, then you have been successful. So why do you come back to say you still need to restructure? If you are saying that, then of course it means your 85 was not that 85. Because if your 85 was based on a smaller value, instead of the original big value you wanted to restructure, then perhaps maybe you were able to restructure, let's say, about 60 or 65. Then we will know that, yes, we didn't get all the 85 to be successful. But when you came out to say you had 85 and you are successful, then let the public also take that we are successful.
Okay.
So
for me, this is bringing back the conversation we had earlier about the issue of exemption. It came up strongly, and of course you were one of the persons arguing for that if you do a voluntary exemption, there's a difference from the legal exemption, which means it's statutory, it's backed by the policy of the Ministry of Finance, and so many of you may not suffer the impact. Given the fact that there's this likely second round of domestic debt exchange that will happen, is this the time that you call for that? A clear message, clear indication, much more clearer than it was in the past?
Well, the second round that is being talked about, the ministry always comes out to say, no, we are not going to do something. And what I also know is that if the ministry was going to do something at all, it would be along the lines of their MOU that they had with the Labour.
Yeah.
And I think they said so. In the agreement, they have said they would work together to ensure that they can do something mutually beneficial to ensure that our debt sustainability level is achieved. So whatever they have to do to ensure that it is left for them to do that. So if they are going to do that, I will not say it's a second round of debt restructuring. Of course, the government also came to say that they may also be looking at the local dollar bonds that they have issued. And I think I read also that they were even looking at cocoa bills, which I didn't know why even cocoa bills
want to go there.
Should be even mentioned. Right. But that is what the news was saying. So if you want to do for the dollar, local dollar bond, they haven't done it. So if they want to do it, that's a different matter. So it means that was in touch in the first restructuring. But I don't think if anybody is talking about a second restructuring, it will be like bringing people who were exempted previously into the program.
Okay.
I say so because for us, our exemption, it was not a condition. It was based on no condition. It was total exemption. But the Labour one, it was on condition that they may come back and talk later on to do something that will help. They also come to...
Will you feel surprised if the finance minister backtracks on that?
On the Labour one?
On your side?
Ours, he cannot backtrack. He cannot, it's unconditional.
How certain?
We didn't have... He can't. Once exempted, always exempted. There was no condition whatsoever. So he can't come back. And mind you, these are matters which has been entered into the records of the parliament. If you go and take the parliamentary records, it's there.
Right.
Clear, black and white.
Yeah, but it's as simple as that, going back to Parliament, explaining that we have a
well, if he wants to go back...
and simply revoking that cover you have.
But I don't think that will be, you see...
And that's why I'm asking you what you would do and how you feel if the finance minister decides to backtrack.
Credibility in our market. You can't be saying things today, you say something, then the next day you go and change it. You say this, you go and change. We will be shooting ourselves by not being credible. And especially in the financial market. Credibility is key in the financial market. So if we see you today, you say this, the next day, so I don't think the minister will wake up.
And here you're
I'm going to do that. You would have destroyed completely the market.
But you're a man of many hats, and you know about the markets, you know about the figures, you know about the size of what's happening now. What do you think is going through the minds of many of your colleagues, those who are pensioner bondholders, and are wondering what may happen to their funds?
Well, that is there. Everybody, you see, and that's why I said you must calm the market. I believe that if we want to do it right, we can do it right. And I started saying that government should start borrowing a little more every week from the treasury bill market and be servicing this. The government didn't do that. It waited after all these bills has become the maturity and the bonds that, the coupons that were due has become huge. You wanted to go and borrow extra 1 billion in a week. You needed 2-point-something billion to retire bond, maturing bills. You asked for 3-point-something, which was 1 billion more.
Yeah.
And that was the week. That week that the government has assured us that they were going to pay everything. So if you went into the market with that huge, you send the market, up in terms of the rate.
Okay, let's talk about the way forward now. Your matters are still outstanding, I believe, and there are obviously some engagement you're still carrying out. But what's the way forward, and what assurances are you getting from government on your concerns, specifically about the
assurance we got last week when we met the Deputy Minister of Finance was that we were going to immediately pay the outstanding coupons, which was 5 in all, as at 29th. And then they have also assured us that they have given specific instructions to the Controller and Accountant General to prioritize the payment of coupons, which to me means as soon as the coupons are due, they must ensure that it's paid. So we have taken that. And the third one was that the 4 coupons, 4 principals, which we were asking for interest on them because of the long delay, that was also going to be paid. Government said we should give it 2 weeks. And so 1 week has gone. This the second week. They have started paying both the coupons and the principals. And we believe and hope that by the end of this week, they would have cleared all that. And then there are other coupons that also has come up this June.
Right.
And since government says it has ordered or instructed the Accountant General to prioritize that, we believe that also must be paid. Otherwise, if by next week, Monday, some other may even also be due. We wait Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If there is still any coupon or any principal still in arrears that has not been paid, that is where...
Dr. Entry, are you certain that government may not be overwhelmed by settling your demands?
Well, government should know, and that's why I always say government should look at its cash flow well. Government should look at its cash flow well. And we have always been saying if there is a need for it to cut some areas, cut those areas. If you cut those areas, it doesn't affect the financial market the way it the effect of the financial market if you keep on defaulting on these bonds, rather than if you had cut some expenditure somewhere and pay this so that your financial market will be... That is where you can get the money always. Look, today, before on my way, I went to an office and somebody met me and said, "Doc, how is it? Is it going well?" I said, "Well, we are on it." And could you believe, he said he has some money. He wanted to buy treasury bill, but he's still afraid and he's keeping the money in his room. Somebody who is middle...
Supposed to know.
Yes, not any other, no.
Right.
He said he's keeping the money because they don't know what is going to happen. And it's true. People, even the treasury bill market that is left for government to borrow, people are doing more of 3 months and 9 months. If you look at the statistics, many people are doing that one. They are not doing the 365 days. And you can't be using 3 months funding or 8 months or 6 month funding to do your developmental projects in this country.
Right.
You need to have long-term capital. And if you don't do this well, to open up the bonds market, and you think you are doing this and it's affecting just because people are holding on to the old bonds, you are shooting yourself, because you can't bring back the bonds market for you to be able to borrow long-term for your long-term development.
We need to go, but as we wrap up, you have your own understanding and perspective on this current IMF deal that we are running. If you look into that crystal ball, what's your prediction in terms of outlook for our economy and possibly the impact for businesses?
Well, for me, if we do our things well, and sometimes that is why this IMF program, when you go in, because of the discipline it imposes on you.
Right.
The things that we don't have to do, we are doing. So if they say, don't do this, and we are able not to do that, I believe we will succeed. But the whole thing is how to bring back public confidence in this market. The public confidence, so that government can have access to the market. And therefore, I'm saying that stability is important. That's why I keep on saying that you can't stabilize this market when people's funds are still locked up in this financial. There's a bigger discussion that we have to have. People's funds are locked up in this financial market. You'd only talk about financial stability without people getting their money back, which is locked, back to themselves for them to use. We are just talking, and it won't happen. Financial stability, unless people have gotten their money back. So let us all work together and ensure that we are bringing public confidence back to the market, and then stability will be achieved.
Certainly, stability, certainty is all we are looking for, but it all needs to start with a good program and good fiscal measures in this time. And Dr. Edouard Anienchi, you've been fighting a good cause, I believe. It's had a toll on you personally.
Yes. You are not resting, you know. Keep on people calling you, and you have to respond. Sometimes you are going to sleep early morning, people are calling you, and sometimes if you give them don't worry, this will be. So people are really going through certain things that they needed you to speak with them, to give them the assurance that, wait, don't do this, it will be well.
I see. It shall be well.
Yes.
That's all. That's all we're grateful. Dr. Edouard Anienchi, thank you for joining us here on The Pulse. You're with us on The Pulse on the Joy News channel. When we return, we'll talk about the Office of the Special Prosecutor and why the office wants the former secretary to the Inter-Ministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining arrested. Charles BCU is in the news. We'll talk about him afterwards.